watching the PlantX Vodcast. Join us as we explore the inner workings of all things plant-based and all things PlantX, from the products and lifestyles to the people behind them. Now welcome our host, the man who combined his love of e-commerce and the plant-based lifestyle to create PlantX, Sean Dollinger.
Hey everyone, welcome to the PlantX Vodcast. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day to join us and joining us each week to learn a little bit more about the PlantX story. The team continues to work around the clock. We've made some announcements on the extension of some new platforms that we've launched in different countries. And, just so you could understand it from a investor standpoint, for us to expand into another country is as easy as just translating a website. And then typically the translators love what they're doing for PlantX and join the team and act as the customer service representative for that area. But typically we use the same distribution center, same technology. Shopify Plus is incredible these days to allow companies to scale. For any first-time viewers today, we love to start the show by sharing what PlantX is all about. We're your one-stop shop for everything plant-based. So if you're looking for groceries, plant-based meal delivery, plant-based cosmetics, plant-based products for your pet, we're literally your one-stop shop for everything. I believe we're approaching close to 10,000 different products and shipping across North America with same-day delivery in Los Angeles, Toronto, Ottawa, Chicago, Vancouver, and the list keeps extending. We have great partnerships with the Hudson Bay Company, oldest company in Canada, and a bunch of other exciting partnerships out there, which obviously we share on the podcasts each week. Had a chance to catch up with Todd Boyman before the show today from Hungry Planet. I'm excited to have him on the show to speak about his products and the innovation he brings. So on that note, welcome to the show, Todd.
Sean, delighted to be here, and thanks for distributing our products through you guys' platform. Delighted to be partners with you.
Yeah, awesome, and loved getting to know a little bit more about the product before the show today. And before we start sharing with the viewers, we love to start our podcasts by asking how our guests take their coffee.
Yeah, actually, I'm not a coffee drinker of all things. I drink herbal tea, so I take my coffee as tea.
Awesome. And then with on the tea front, you ever mix in any oat milk or anything like that?
I do. Oat milk is my go-to. It's by far, in my mind, the best plant-based milk that's out there. I used to use almond, and 20, 30 years ago, it was all soy. But oat milk, for me, is exactly the right note.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how this industry keeps evolving where you're having that almond milk and you're like, okay, it's okay, it's good. And then oat milk, it's like first time where it's like, wow. And people are actually replacing. I stand in Starbucks lines and I'm shocked by the amount of people now ordering oat milk versus anything else.
Isn't it fantastic to see that evolution? I mean, that is the exciting thing about this entire category, is that it does not stand still. And regardless of the category, whether it's non-dairy milks or plant-based meats or plant-based cheeses, it is constantly evolving and getting better and better all the time. So it's a really exciting category to be in.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's what you're doing so well, right? Like sometimes I'm like, oh man, is this oat milk really oat milk, or did they mess up and put milk in my drink? And it's where we don't need to educate, the human brain on what we once maybe found or got trained to like. And that's what I love. Like I went to grab some of your product, as far as dumplings go, and people love the product, and they try it and they're like, oh, I'm not just eating vegetables. I know this taste and it's awesome. And it's actually better than what I'm used to. And then it's very easy, right?
Isn't it great? It's that familiar taste and texture, but it's an upgrade to the conventional, both for the planet, for your health, and for the well-being of animals. And it's interesting because, the pork gyoza that you just shared, when you're buying at that retail, very clearly that is a plant-based item. But when it's served at food service or at a restaurant, people order it, it comes out, and exactly as you were just saying, people ask the waiter, "Wait a second, I wanted the plant-based one," because the texture and the taste in the case of Hungry Planet is so similar to the conventional that it often results in a conversation at the table of, "Did you serve me the wrong thing?" As a matter of fact, we actually punked one of the largest meat companies on the planet a couple of years ago. 100 of the top executives were at their annual banquet. We served Hungry Planet meat to them. They were not told in advance. They had no idea. And the big reveal then was, well, what you just ate was plant-based. Dead silent, 100 pairs of eyes, we're like, what just happened here? And then a round of applause for, really well played. But nothing is more satisfying than doing that.
Yeah, I love that. And, there's this whole argument out there about why do we need to mock crab meat? Why do we need to mock these different things that exist? And I think if we're going to educate the world on coming on this plant-based journey and accepting everybody, I think that's the way we get them into the door, to get excited to try these products, and then their minds will be blown, and then they'll look for other things or other products that interest them.
Yeah, it's always that interesting critique. Well, why do you call it chicken, beef, pork, crab? You're like, well, what else would you call it? I mean, because that's what it tastes like, and people love those tastes because they're savory, they're really good, they're delicious foods, and so there's nothing else to call them other than what they taste and perform like. So, it's always kind of humorous when people are like, well, you shouldn't call it that. You're like, okay, well, you come up with a better name and we'll test it out.
Great call. Todd, how did it all begin? Where did the idea come from, and the journey?
It really started about 20 years ago. Jody, my older sister, has eaten plant-based since grade school about 45 years ago. I started about 35 years ago, and it started as a passion project. So we and some other like-minded friends realized that we could spend a lot of time, money, effort, energy to educate people about why you might eat differently for the sake of the planet, for your health, and for animal welfare. But after doing that for decades, we found that wasn't really moving the needle. And so we sat back about 20 years ago and said, look, can we replicate conventional meat from plants? And that's where it started. It started as a passion project. My background is a tech investor and a tech entrepreneur, but we absolutely believe that this was the single most important problem that we could solve. The mission of our business is to bend the curve on personal and planetary health. And this is the lever that we're choosing to really lean against. And about 7 years ago, it was clear that the food that we were creating was absolutely amazing, and that the market was getting more and more ready for it. And so we thought, okay, let's kind of go all in and let's get this company launched and start bringing our foods to market.
Awesome story. And I love that you've been in this for 20 years. We were pre-pandemic, we were born pretty much right before then. And, the whole idea of people kind of scrambling into the industry just when it starts becoming hot, what are the actual intentions of those companies? Well, having someone on today that's been in the space for 20 years and seen how it's evolved is so interesting and so great to see,
Well, thank you. I mean, there are probably a handful of people who've been working on this for more than 48 months, and even less who've been working on it for a decade or more. But it's come a long way. Clearly, there was a lot of education that had to happen. Fortunately, Silicon Valley got behind this in a big way, spending, first of all, tons of millions, then hundreds of millions, and ultimately billions to educate a very large, broad audience about what the promise of this category was. No different than the early days of the internet. I mean, for those who are old enough to remember that, in the early days, it was Silicon Valley trying to educate, and the first browsers were Mosaic, right? The first search engines were Alta Vista. Now, none of us use those tools anymore, but that's what launched it. And I think we're going through the exact same thing right now in the entire plant-based food movement. And whether that be on the beverage side or the cheese side or the meat side, is that education's taken place and things are really starting to accelerate. So it's a really interesting time in this movement.
Yeah, no, I still remember, even maybe 10 years ago where everybody said, oh, Whole Foods, this organic thing, it's as early as just 10 years ago, right? And then now it's mainstream and pretty much every major city. And where we're evolving in these plant-based stores, is that the future where people, just even a year or even today, like, okay, cool, these are cool products and everything, but how are you going mainstream, right? So I think these are stepping stones. And what you spoke about really quickly kind of clicked a switch. I mean, I still remember 20 years ago going to someone's home who was showing me what they believed a online shopping was going to be, and it was you walking into a mall and they were selling space in a virtual mall. Quite unique. But hey, they might have not been off, because look at the metaverse right now, right? Like,
yeah, they were 10, 20 years ahead of their time. So absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, what's interesting is, with companies such as yourself that have entirely focused on doing things plant-based, there's now this general awareness out there. And I think, 20, 30 years ago, the data that was available was really compelling about why people would use to be plant-based. But today, there's just so much information and it's so readily available that really it's overwhelming. And it's difficult for people to avoid getting that message because it's right there in front of them all the time. Here we're taking a look at our website, and I think one of the things that we're seeing here is at Hungry Planet, one of our value propositions that we really focus on that makes Hungry Planet different is really focusing on being chef crafted, right? That was our vision from 20 years ago when we first started working on this, and making sure that it was demonstrably healthier for you, that the ingredients were better for you, no saturated fats, more fiber, more protein, and absolutely delicious food. And so that's what we've been executing to. And as people have gotten aware of this category and then discover the Hungry Planet brand, they're like, where have you been? You're offering the variety I've been looking for. We have 9 different meat types, chicken, pork, beef, crab, various types of sausages. We actually have lamb and turkey. And then we've also figured out how to develop this very robust, very broad supply chain that lets us prepare meals and foods in ways that people want to consume them. So with 9 different meat types, we're offering it everything from kind of the raw ground chubs to preformed raw items to pre-cooked items like the gyoza that you had. We have grilled chicken strips. We have a chicken patty, to ready-to-heat meals. So as this awareness has been building, as you said, starting kind of a decade ago to where we are now, consumers are looking for the variety. They want to make sure that it really is better for them. And then they want it in all those cuisines and all those forms that they're used to consuming. And that's what we're working to deliver.
Yeah, and I think one of the really important words that I heard was delicious, because everything else could be good, right? Like the texture, the look, all the parts about it. But the delicious part, I think, is key. So great job on that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's where it starts, right? If you can't get that right, it doesn't matter. That's why our Chief Culinary Officer, Chef Ron DeSantis, he's actually a certified master chef, of which there are only 62 active certified master chefs in the United States. It's the highest designation you can have. And from day one, that's a picture of Ron right there. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see him right underneath my picture. There's Chef Ron. Phenomenal chef. He was an instructor at the Culinary Institute of America for 20 years, led their global consulting practice, has cooked for royalty around the world. He's cooked at the White House and at Camp David. But just he makes sure that the food is absolutely delicious. And if it doesn't meet kind of his standard of delicious, it doesn't get released into the wild for consumers to be able to enjoy.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And we always say it here, you got to hire experts, right? At the end of the day in what you're building. Otherwise, if you and I are going to go cook and try to roll something out, I don't think we'd have the success you guys have.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to put together that team, right? You kind of create the vision of what the problem is that you're trying to solve, what the opportunity is, and then you find all the right team members to make it happen. And Jody and I have been really fortunate in attracting people like Chef Ron, who actually left Yale University, where he was heading up their dining services, where that's 14 dining halls, 15,000 from scratch meals a day, right? And then when our paths crossed and he tasted where we were going, he goes, I want to leave Yale and I want to join you guys and be a part of this. And so, that's happened over and over again with the types of members that we've brought on our team who are experts in everything and how to scale the supply chain, to how to really package the value proposition of what makes Hungry Planet different. So you're absolutely right. It's one thing to have a vision. The execution is a totally different issue, and you've got to have extraordinary team members, and we're very grateful to have those on our team.
And sticking with the team member topic, I don't know if you've encountered this. We've definitely encountered it on our side, how people are just so passionate about this that it's not even like a job anymore. It's like people working around the clock, building something incredible. And even relationships like we're having here today, where we want to help you want to provide incredible products that end up benefiting us, and collaborating. I've been in 5-10 different business sectors in my life, and I've never quite seen this passion across the board.
Yeah, it is extraordinary, the energy behind this space. And quite frankly, it exists not just with those people who are fully committed to eating plant-based, right? So when we're hiring our team members, we don't have this litmus test of, are you plant-based or not? Or are you inclined to become plant-based or not? We're just looking for people who are extraordinary at what they do, because we know that once they get inside and they start tasting these foods, these are some of the pre-cooked items and others that we offer. What happens, because one of the perks of working at Hungry Planet is that you get these foods to bring home for free and cook and eat on your own time. People start then becoming plant-based, right? Just because the food is so good, and that enthusiasm and that energy just continues to build, because it's a lot of work. I mean, just like at PlanetX, you guys are putting in enormously long hours. We are as well. And it's just satisfying. People get plugged in, they start tasting the food, they start understanding how this is impacting their personal health, planetary health. Some people care more or less about the animal welfare piece, but they start connecting all those dots, and you can see it in the energy level that they bring to work. It's very rewarding.
Yeah, agreed, Todd. I can't tell you, one thing I find people bond around a dinner table. Whenever I've traveled around the world, that's always something. You work hard during the day, and then you take some time out for a really nice dinner with everybody and speaking about these things. But, in the past, I've been invited, and let's say we go to a heavier place, I'm eating vegetables, I feel good. But how many people around a steak are always like, oh man, I'm like, every person that I've introduced to plant-based food or plant-based meals, their reaction's always like, listen, I'm full, but wow, I feel great. Never have I had somebody like have a plant-based meal yet and turn to me, and this is going on 8 years now, 9 years, let's say, and be like, oh man, I don't feel good from that plant-based meal,
Yeah, no, exactly. So I feel heavy. It's just like, well, it tasted great, it digests well, and you're ready to get on to your next activity without feeling bogged down. I'm not going to out by name, but we have a member of our team who continues to serve our foods at family gatherings that this individual has, whether it's the 4th of July or Memorial Day or Labor Day, and doesn't share with some of the extended family members of this person's family that it's plant-based, because he knows, it's a he, that the reaction is going to be, what are you doing to us? It takes great satisfaction in just providing these traditional favorites that they've always done as a family, and not having to call out and saying it's a plant-based meat, because in his mind and in our mind, what we're delivering is an upgrade to what people have eaten conventionally. And so when you're providing an upgrade, instead of having to call it out, you serve it and people enjoy it, and they move on through the rest of their day.
And Matthew Kenny's our chief culinary officer here, and he said it best to me day one. I still remember it when we were having a conversation. He says, why do we need to highlight that it's plant-based or vegan? Why can't it just be food at the end of the day? And it's really stuck with me. It makes a lot of sense.
It's exactly right. Probably 4 or 5 years ago, before this market really took off, as Jody and I were working just to validate that the market was ready for this type of food and that our food was ready for prime time, we wanted to make sure it would work in any type of venue, in any type of cuisine, and anywhere in the world. And so one of our tests was with a public K-12 school, and one of these schools had 17,000 students, and they put it on their menu, and we had a lot of discussions with them about what to call it. And so they simply called it Hungry Planet Burger, Hungry Planet Chicken Chile Verde Burrito, Hungry Planet, Italian meatball sub. They ultimately created over 30 items that were Hungry Planet fill in the blank. And then there's the little asterisks, and if you followed the asterisks, it said 100% plant-based. Now in K-12, there aren't a lot of students who are reading the asterisks, right? They're just eating it because the food is great. The food service director at the end of the year, and this was just a pilot, right? There was no master plan, totaled up all the meals that she had served district-wide in 17,000 students. 2 million meals have been served. 1 million were Hungry Planet. Half of them were Hungry Planet. Again, it was no master plan. It was branded and labeled in the right way. And there was less waste because the kids were like, this is just flat out delicious food. So, Matthew's exactly right. What you call it is really important. And you don't need to be flagging that it's plant-based. It's just delicious food.
Awesome. And listen, kids wouldn't eat it, right, if it wasn't good. So that's the best audience out there.
Well, it is. And in some ways, it is the most rigorous test you can go through, right? I mean, I understand you've got some youngsters of your own. And if it's not good, they're not going to eat it. It was interesting when I sat down with the head of food service in the school district at the end of the year. I was like, Nancy, you just kept on, bringing in pallet after pallet after pallet. We had no visibility as to what you were doing with it. And that's when she revealed that 50% of the meals ended up being Hungry Planet. Jody and I asked her, did you have any complaints from students, faculty, staff, community members, parents? She said, not a single complaint from anybody in that audience, right? I mean, that's extraordinary because when you're delivering good food and it's better for you, and for a lot of these students, it was the only meal that they were getting all day long, you realize that you are delivering on the promise of what a good meal should be, and it happens to be plant-based.
Amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for everything you're doing for the world and, the education out there. We take the same philosophy of making everyone feel welcome. We want people to enjoy, take that first bite and be like, man, what are the new lines Plantex is carrying? What else could we get delivered to our doorstep? And obviously, Todd, I could speak to you for hours here at the end of the day, but we obviously are live and today's super active with questions and people are taking 30 minutes out of their day. You gave us 30 minutes of your day. And I just want to make sure people are getting what they want out of the show. And we could obviously connect anytime to have a conversation. So if it's okay with you, I'd love to open that up and we'll put together a nice care package from you guys that we have at the warehouse to ship out to someone in North America for giving feedback and participating today and telling us how we could make ourselves better. So hopefully that's
fantastic.
Good. So we've got a question. What cuisines are you focusing on next?
Yeah, so because we're unique in that we're the first and only company to have 9 different meat types, it lets us play in any cuisine. So you'll see in the current lineup that we have right now, we have an Asian meatball. We have the gyoza, which is also an Asian cuisine. We have some ready-to-heat meals. We have an Italian ready-to-heat meal with a meatball and penne. We have a chicken piccata. We also have a Salisbury steak. But what we're working on the R&D side is we're working on kind of this entire category of street foods, right? So really making sure it's authentic. So we're not focused on just one. We're focused on the palates and the tastes that people love, and we're just putting into that all the different 9 meat types that we have. So those who follow us on Instagram, Hungry Planet Foods, or on Facebook, Hungry Planet Foods, or on LinkedIn, we'll be announcing more what's coming. But you'll see more and more street foods that are authentic cuisines from around the world to really reach people, Sean, as you were saying, where they are, right? The foods that they love to eat with exactly those right flavor profiles.
Yeah, the flavors are key. And at the end of the day, one thing that people speak about a brand versus a marketplace or a platform like we've got. And I always say a brand is so hard to build up, the reputation and everything, out of you guys are doing incredible. For every one like you, there's probably not just 99, but probably 500 companies struggling out there, right? So once you've created this audience and this following you have, I think it's so awesome how you're like expanding into all of these different food groups to really encourage people to go out there and try and see the amazing flavors there are in this plant-based sector.
Yeah, for us, it's so important that people's first experience eating a plant-based meat is delivers on the promise of what this category should do. And we talk about that a lot within our culinary team, within our marketing team, and our production team. Of what we don't want to do is just to drive a lot of hype and then not deliver on the promise of what this food should be. It should be delicious food. It should be made healthier. It should be demonstrably healthier, not just a claim of being healthier. And when you can do that, and you can do it in all the cuisines, you start developing this brand where it becomes a standard of identity that when people see the Hungry Planet brand, they're like, okay, I know that every single item, and we've got 17 retail items, right? There's no one else in this category who has 17 retail items. We have 17 retail items. They're all delicious, and they are all demonstrably better for you. So when you can do that, hopefully we make it really easy for people who want to understand this category and say, look, if it's got that Hungry Planet blue logo, I know it's going to check the boxes, and it's an easy way for me to figure out, how to incorporate this into my lifestyle.
It's definitely challenging, but to tick all those boxes. But you guys are doing a great job over there. And we have Adam who asks something. I think great question. How do you get your products to stand out in a market that is becoming more and more saturated?
Yeah, ultimately, it does come back to taste, right? I mean, people's experience with it have to be good. The challenge is getting people to take it off the shelf to begin with. But we actually, if you look at the SPINS data, which in the United States is the sell-through retail data, that you have to pay a lot to get that. When you look at that data, Hungry Planet, the data shows that Hungry Planet is the most successful plant-based meat launch of the past 2 years in terms of velocity, which means that it's moving off the shelf. So when people who made that first purchase commitment are finding it and are buying it over and over again, and in terms of points of distribution. So, we found a way to do it. And as people discover it, they're buying it repeatedly. And we're doing it, quite frankly, with a very small capital raise compared to most companies in this space. But it's because we've been working on it for close to 20 years, right? So we've really figured out how to make this food great. And once people have had that first taste, it just builds from there. We're about to launch in the next 30 to 40 days on the East Coast in Weiss Markets. They have 196 stores, and they're launching with 11 retail SKUs of ours, right? I mean, so that's unheard of. So when you can get that kind of loyal following, the customers just start pulling it into all these different channels of distribution.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And
believes in a plant-based future for our health and the health of our planet. We've created a unique online shop for everything plant-based. Our intent on positioning globally is the core of our vision for investor accessibility and corporate growth. Learn more at investor.plantx.com.
Hey, Todd, it's Christian.
Hey.
Seems Sean's dropped off, probably due to technical difficulties. Okay. Question for you, sir. Yeah. What have you learned in your experience running this business that they do not teach you in school?
The biggest thing is really just the persistence it takes and the grit to work through what's coming. The best example of that, I think, is when COVID hit, right? There was so much going on in terms of building momentum in this space. We were going to launch in food service first, and we literally had shipped our first container to our distributor to launch in food service. And 10 days later, which was March 13th. So just a little over a year ago, it shut down. And so we very rapidly had to accelerate our retail plans by about 24 months because it was clear that's where things were going. So that's an example of something they're not necessarily teaching you in school, but the unexpected is always going to come. And if you're not ready to react to that, you're in a lot of trouble. And I know, Sean, growing the businesses you've probably seen that over and over again, is you just don't know what's coming next, whether it's something like the pandemic we've just been through and hopefully are on the backside of, or it's a competitor that's jumping up, or it's a technical glitch of something not working properly. You just need to be ready to kind of roll with it.
Yeah, you got to be able to roll. That's for sure. If anybody saw the pandemic coming, and then being able to adjust and know what's going to happen, you'd think the stock markets would tank. They end up taking off, and all these different opposites out there that just don't make sense. And you've got to make sense of it. And I use the word agile quite often, because if you're not agile in 2022, you are in big trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And I think the other thing is really making sure that you're paying attention to those big trends, right, that are coming. And in the technology world, there's that expression of that we often overestimate the change in the short term and underestimate in the long term. And I think, initially out of the gates with the plant-based, there was some of that irrational exuberance. But now what we're seeing is that promise is being delivered on. There is that latent desire for these things. And so being agile to, just move with it, whether it's a different cuisine that's on trend, or it's a different meat type, or it's a different way of getting the food to the customer, or it's a meal, or it's a pre-cooked item. That is a key to being successful in this category and business in general. No question about that.
Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks for sharing with us today, Todd. It was wonderful having you on. Thank you so much for your time, and look forward to getting together or speaking soon.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be with you, and appreciate all that you guys are doing at Plan X. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much for joining, everyone. I apologize that my service got interrupted here, but thank you for sticking around and listening to our vodcast today. Christian, who handles the management of the vodcast, has done a wonderful job, endless hours, working around the clock to get us approved on the Apple Store, as far as vodcasts go and all of that. So thank you very much, Christian, for being determined and getting it done. I think I saw some emails today that it's going to be put live on our plantx.com website in the top right-hand corner. Sorry for spoiling the surprise if it's not up there yet, but that'll be up there in the next couple days. Until next week, stay curious, stay planted, stay healthy.
Thanks for watching the PlantX Vodcast. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. For more information, go to investor.plantx.com. See you next time.